The past has left us with great mysteries, and I mean that literally. In the distant past, our ancestors created enormous, immortal structures that inevitably raise questions. How was this possible? How, thousands of years ago, did humans manage to extract huge blocks of stone from the ground? And yet, our most modern construction machinery can only work tirelessly on these stones. Could it be that the ancients, without the simple methods and tools we use today, had another spirit, something that leads us to question even more deeply? Could it be that the people who built the pyramids and other structures were not the ancients? Just as our historical perspective is so uncertain, it seems that all the angles of this world were drawn by giants of construction, leaving us both incredulous and in awe. And the greatness of the ancients is not only evident in the time of ancient Egypt, but also in an ancient city in Turkey, where everything has been covered by massive structures. In the roots of southeastern Anatolia, at least 11,600 years ago, lay enormous blocks of stone weighing 8 to 10 tons. The processing and positioning of these gigantic blocks required advanced knowledge and coordination, revealing the essence of things. However, an observation beyond the edges of archaeology suggests that history is always bigger. Thus, over the millennia that followed, more grandiose structures were built, turning those previous structures into small Lego blocks. Greeks, Romans, Mayans, and Incas left us silent witnesses of their eras, which still leave us breathless today. But when it comes to the mystery of ancient gigantic constructions, the ancient Egyptians might be the most perfect example. And we're not just referring to the famous pyramids of Giza. Even the statue temples and obelisks leave many modern researchers without clues or suggestions, mainly because the pharaohs didn't record much about the construction techniques they used. What makes it even more enigmatic when we remember that the pharaohs almost always recorded everything. In the absence of archaeological evidence, specialists have no choice but to delve into theories. How did the Egyptians move blocks of stone weighing several tons and turn them into architectural masterpieces? Researchers generally believe that the ancestors of the pyramids used boats to transport these heavy loads from one place to another. It is said that they used large wooden shovels, with the help of hundreds or even thousands of workers, to move the shovels on land, using an advanced ramp system, allowing the components to be maneuvered at great heights and assembled with unparalleled precision into an immortal structure. Theoretically, these explanations sound quite logical, but in reality, most of the construction methods and tools of ancient Egypt have disappeared over time. Now, we must not forget that the gigantic constructions of Rome were not inferior to those of Egypt because, in fact, the Romans installed some of the largest known blocks of stone in their cities. The list of archaeological mysteries grows, with more intriguing entries. How did the Romans move an object weighing 1,000 tons? This is a problem that must be faced. At the quarry in Baalbek in present-day Lebanon, the so-called stone of the pregnant woman is over 20 meters long, about 5 meters wide, and more than 4 meters high, weighing the equivalent of nearly 170 African elephants. Given the extreme size, the circumstances become even more impressive, because two other giant stones found in the same city are even bigger. Detailed calculations estimate the weight of the unnamed stone between 1240 and 1650 tons, placing it among the largest artificial blocks ever recorded. But why would the Romans move these massive stones from the quarry? And especially, how did they do it? What construction projects in antiquity required such gigantic blocks of stone? When it comes to the issue of use, experts widely agree, believing that these stones were used to build the Temple of Baalbek. And it's not surprising, as the Baalbek Temple complex is famous for its gigantic constructions. Let's observe the stones that make up the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter, which are almost too large to be real. In the corresponding photos, the people in the foreground appear almost like ants. So it's clear that the Romans could have moved such enormous loads. Still, experts can only speculate on how these stones were transported. Despite the historical records providing us with insights into the secrets of Roman construction, such as the military engineer and architect Marcus Vitruvius Pollio, who left behind a work on architecture, the only theoretical work on construction from antiquity, which reveals the art of building temples, residences, and cities in 10 books. Meanwhile, we also learn about some contemporary techniques, showing how the Romans used wind, cranes, and cables to complete their complex construction projects. According to theories, in the construction of particularly large buildings, they might have used several cranes simultaneously. In terms of transportation, historians mention the use of rollers or sleds, but wouldn't these blocks be crushed or sink into the sand under the weight of stones, like the stone of the pregnant woman? This is not a trivial matter, but specialists emphasize that centuries ago, it was possible to transport extremely large stones over long distances. And as you can see, this did not involve the use of lost technologies or alien-assisted tools. In this aspect, the obelisk in St. Peter's Square is often mentioned. In 1586, with the help of 900 men, 150 horses, and 47 cables, the obelisk was moved to a new position. However, we must note that the pink granite obelisk weighed only 320 tons, so it was nearly 700 tons lighter than the stone of the pregnant woman. Perhaps this is the reason why the stone colossus still sleeps in the Baalbek quarry, never having been used to build an overwhelming, immortal temple. The Romans may have had to admit that they had reached their limit and brought back something incomplete. Did ancient constructions witness an unbelievable fact? Of course. There is an alternative that is not easy to believe. The idea that the Roman construction projects were severely underestimated does not seem convincing. It's more likely that our distant ancestors were often visited by aliens, which is more credible, where theories of ramps and muscle strength run out. Extraterrestrial beings began to play their part, being worshipped as supernatural gods by the inhabitants of Earth. On the other hand, the alien visitors showed humanity advanced technologies, which made it possible to create immortal structures. But what kind of technology should have been used? Even in another scenario, this is not clearly explained. In summary, it is agreed that these machines worked very differently from ours. Among other things, implosion and the power of sound are mentioned. For example, the resonant chants of Egyptian priests during the construction of the pyramids have been interpreted as the reason why heavy stone blocks were moved by sound waves. But how well-founded are these unusual claims? Could these gigantic stones not have been moved and handled in a way that doesn't destroy our current image of history? To answer this question, a research team decided to conduct a practical test. A few years ago, participants raised a granite obelisk designed by sculptor Rick Brown in Massachusetts. Specifically, the researchers used a structure consisting of a ramp and sand, where, as the sand was gradually removed, the obelisk slowly lowered into the intended position. There you go. This simple yet ingenious method proved to be quite effective. Finally, men and women still managed to fully erect the obelisk at a final 15-degree angle, using only muscle power. On the other hand, a modern experiment showed that the Romans and Egyptians would need much more effort to move their oversized pieces from point A to point B. In 2012, the Los Angeles Art Museum created an installation called Suspended Mass, where a floating mass weighed 340 tons. But first, a 6.55-meter-high rock had to be transported from the Jurupa Valley, 170 kilometers away, to Los Angeles. For this, a specially customized truck had to be built around the rock. Now it was ready. The truck was 80 meters long, 9.75 meters wide, and had 196 wheels. During the transport, the XXL truck slid along the road at a speed of 6 kilometers per hour. The transfer lasted a total of 11 nights and cost $10 million. The media called this operation the largest since the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. However, if the ancient Egyptians only had to travel 170 kilometers, they would have been pleased. Some of the stones that make up the Giza Plateau were quarried from a quarry 800 kilometers away, which might have been a shorter time for you to reach the subscribe button. The journey is already underway. Join our community now and never miss a fascinating video. See you later.